and more than half of that is going to be made in Columbia City. $310 million to accelerate the future long-range assault aircraft with engines that are made in Indianapolis. The NDAA requires the Pentagon to report back to us how it can move ship component production from the coast to the Midwest. I was proud to fight for these wins and make sure the Indiana Defense Industrial Base, the Defense Industrial Base continues to build cutting-edge weapons for our warfighters now and into the future. I want to get to what we're all looking forward to today, and that's to our Secretary of War. Secretary of War Pete Hegseth has been the exact leader the military needed to restore the focus of lethality after 4 disastrous years under the previous administration. Under his leadership, Secretary Hegseth has ended wokeness and DEI in the military and brought back the warrior ethos. Nothing could be more important than that, and in a short period of time, that's what the Secretary of War has done. He's turned around the military's worst recruitment crisis since the creation of an all-volunteer force. It has been an astonishing success story. This year, the military services far exceeded their goals for new recruits and more troops than ever because these men and women decided they wanted to serve our country and were inspired to do that by our Commander-in-Chief and our Secretary of War. Secretary Hegseth made game-changing reforms to defense acquisition, some of which he announced last week and he's going to talk about today. He has worked tirelessly to ensure that America's military meets the challenges of tomorrow, and our enemies have been put on full notice of his leadership and how powerful and mighty the United States military has become on his watch. Ladies and gentlemen, it is an incredible honor as a kid who came from Columbia City, Indiana, right next door to Fort Wayne, to introduce my friend, the Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, to Fort Wayne, Indiana. Please join me in welcoming a great friend.
Well, Senator, thank you very much. You are very kind. I appreciate it. It's a pleasure to be here. Much rather spend a morning in Indiana than a morning in Washington, for sure. Although I could do without the snow as a Minnesota boy. First time I've seen it this season. But thank you. Thank you for being an ally. Thank you for being a voice of sanity. Thank you for being principled yet pragmatic. Looking down the dais of the Senate Armed Services Committee when you get to you and to those seated next to you. Not that I don't love everybody on the Senate Armed Services Committee. Of course we do. I appreciate the clear-eyed view you take of the world and the support you have for President Trump and America First. It's clear. And from day one, so thank you very much. It's also, you mentioned the confirmation process, which as you know, went down to a 50-50 vote in the Senate. My kids were there with me. He just reminded me of that. And they went out, Mark Wayne Mullen, another member of the Senate Armed Services Committee, took my kids out to the forum to watch the vote. And they came back in after the vice president came with his motorcade and broke the tie. And I said, kids, what do you think about, we did it. We broke the tie. He goes, no, Dad, you didn't break the tie. You won in overtime. I kind of like that framing better from the kiddos. So thank you for what all of you do. I know there's so many folks here in industry that support the efforts here in Indiana and across the country. And it's a reminder of the importance of the defense industrial base to the heartland and the importance of the heartland to the defense industrial base. I'm here today to talk a little bit of specifics, but even more broadly about the priorities of President Trump, the Department of War. It happens to be 1 year ago today that President Trump announced my name as his choice for then the Secretary of Defense. 1 year. Barely believe it. I'll never forget walking out of his office on the second floor of Mar-a-Lago, or walking in the middle of it, where he said 2 things. He said, first of all, Pete, you're going to have to be tough as shit. Proved to be true. He also said, I need you to bring the warrior spirit back to the military. We need the warrior spirit back. And that has been our guidepost, as the senator mentioned, from the beginning. I mean, I could lay out the 10 points, and it's been America first, peace through strength, common sense, revive the warrior ethos, rebuild the military, reestablish deterrence. We're going to defend the homeland. We're going to deter China. We're going to make sure our allies do their part in burden sharing, and we're going to revive the defense industrial base. That's 10 points, general overview of what the president prescribed us to do, what the Department of War has been focused on, and the urgent threats that we need to orient on. That's the overview of what a golden age of American warfighting looks like. Now, our top priority, as the president has charted the course, is America first. Go on to the days of nation building or deferring to globalist organizations. Everything we do is America first. And so if America first is our founding principle, then peace through strength is our tried and true playbook. And President Trump understands this like no president since Teddy Roosevelt. The motto of my first platoon, and I think there's value, the senator himself served in Afghanistan, led men. There's value to our generation of troops now having an opportunity to lead. I never thought I'd put the motto of my first platoon to good use. But 1st Platoon, Charlie Company, 2nd of the 113th, New Jersey National Guard, Guantanamo Bay, 2004 to 2005. Our motto was, those who long for peace must prepare for war. And our logo was actually a giant peace sign in barbed wire. Warriors have repeated that motto since the 4th century Rome, including George Washington, the first leader of our War Department. And that's why we returned the name, restored the name of the Department of Defense to the Department of War for clarity, not because we want war, but because we must be fully prepared to wage it. And since waging war is so costly, we owe our republic a military that can win any war we fight. And our adversaries have to believe that we're capable and willing to fight and win that war, which is what leads to actual deterrence. That's peace through strength. Should our enemies choose to challenge us, they will be crushed by the violence and the precision of the War Department. These are not academic and theoretical concepts. They have to be real. It has to be real hard power, and the enemy has to believe you'll use it in order to prevent them from taking action. And certainly it's not theoretical right now. This feels like a 1939 type moment, or hopefully a 1981 type moment, where America needs to lead and rebuild to ensure that we maintain that peace through strength. Enemies are gathering and threats are growing. We have to prepare now. So if you're putting America first and the roadmap is peace through strength, the third ingredient President Trump has injected is good old-fashioned Indiana common sense. Common sense is back at the White House and it's back at the Pentagon. Common sense means putting warfighting, lethality, as the senator mentioned, training, discipline, accountability, readiness at the forefront of everything we do at the Department of War. That means no more social justice, no more political correctness, no more toxic ideological garbage that infected the department. As I've said before, but we repeat and we repeat because as a good old television host, you know it takes a while for it to actually sink in. No more identity months, no more DEI offices, no more dudes in dresses. No more climate change. It actually was a thing. It actually was a thing. No more climate change worship, no more division, no more delusions, gender delusions or quotas, no more distraction. As the chairman of the Joint Chiefs puts it, Pete, you're clearing out the debris. That's what it is. We're clearing out the debris from out front of NCOs and officers. We're done with that stuff. It doesn't take a PhD to understand that sergeants don't need sensitivity training. But we're taking the next step. We're not just undoing damage, we're solidifying the way forward. We're taking concrete steps to ensure that common sense reigns going forward. We're restoring a ruthless, dispassionate, and common sense application of standards. I introduced a golden rule test in a speech I gave at Quantico to a number of generals and senior enlisted. It is, do unto your formations that which you would have done unto your sons. Would you put your son or your daughter into the type of formation you are creating? It's a very clarifying rule. So I don't want my son serving alongside troops who are fat and out of shape, or in combat units with females who can't meet the same combat arms physical standards as men in their units. Standards must be uniform, gender neutral, and high. It's simple. It's colorblind, gender-neutral, merit-based. I say colorblind, gender-neutral, merit-based. That's what the military should be. Because if they're not standards, then they're just suggestions. Suggestions that get our sons and daughters killed in combat. And that's why I've directed every service to ensure that every requirement and every combat MOS returns to the highest male standard only. One standard across those combat jobs. If females make it, fantastic. Then they're most qualified for that position. If not, then so be it. It's not about what gender makes it into what position. It's are the standards meet the duty and the position, because a body on a battlefield or a .155 round weighs the same whether you're a man or a woman. So in line with POTUS's common sense agenda, the first item of what we're undertaking inside the Department of War is restoring the warrior ethos. So a lot of what I just said falls into the category of restoring the warrior ethos. And it's up and down the ranks. As I mentioned, that speech at Quantico, whether you're an airborne ranger or a chairborne ranger, a brand new private or a 4-star general in the Pentagon, you need to meet height and weight standards and pass a PT test twice a year. I also said we don't need to be in military of beardos anymore. Do you know how many troops claim to be Nordic pagan? No, suddenly it's become like this real fake religious affiliation inside the Pentagon where troops claim to be Nordic pagan so they can grow a beard, and no one challenges them on it because no one's upheld standards for a long time. So now a quarter of the platoon is sporting beards because they're now suddenly Nordic pagans. We're not doing that stuff anymore. The idea is, it's sort of the broken windows theory of policing. There'll be some people that say, well, Pete, why would a secretary care about beards and PT standards? It's the same thing. Well, why would a mayor of New York care about squeegee men or about broken windows? It's because when you let the small things go, you create a climate of criminality. But when you let the small things go inside your formations, you create a climate of a lack of discipline where standards cannot be enforced. And if you can't enforce them on the small things, it gets far more difficult to enforce them on even more meaningful things. And so when commanders and NCOs are not empowered to enforce discipline and standards, instead they're called toxic. Now the entire command structure is flipped upside down. And what happens when directives have to be given in combat, when bullets are flying? When you need directives to be clear and you need them to be followed. That's why those things in peacetime matter and they become a reflex in wartime. We're also ending what has become a risk-averse culture. NCOs and commanders no longer have to walk on eggshells, that's the phrase that we've used, for fear of compromising a blemish-free record. You see, blemish-free records are great in peacetime, but they don't work in wartime. So we're overhauling the Inspector General, the EO, and MEO processes so they cannot be weaponized. See, these processes have been weaponized to put complainers, ideologues, and underperformers in the driver's seat. I spent a year writing a book called The War on Warriors before I took this job, where I spent Saturday afternoons at Fox calling members of the military, every rank, every background, every service, asking them what works, what doesn't, what's going wrong in the military. And time again, they came back to command climate. It's impossible to be a commander right now because the minute you enforce a standard, you're called toxic and someone drops an IG complaint on you and you can't get promoted, you can't move on, and you're not empowered to enforce standards. We're changing that entire paradigm. We're reviewing and flipping the entire IG process. Sure, you still can't be racist or sexist. Like, it's been illegal to be racist in the military since 1948. Those things remain and those things are clear. But officers simply upholding high standards that promote the warrior culture are not toxic. And we're no longer are going to be subjected to drawn out, weaponized, unfair investigations that are never anonymous complaints that go on for months and they can't do their job. There's a big difference between something that's anonymous and something that's carefully handled or close hold, confidential. And we've worked with the services, with the joint staff across OSW to put in place a process that ensures that you can approach the IG if necessary, but commanders are empowered throughout. So that's restoring the warrior ethos. Number two is rebuilding the military. Our warriors, I mean, as the president points out, and he's right, we have the strongest, most capable, most lethal military in the world, full stop. No one can touch us. But if we're going to maintain that and put the best weapons, ships, and aircrafts and platforms in the hands of our men and women, we've got a lot of work to do here in Indiana and across the country to get things on time and at scale. So when I think of rebuilding the military, we think of places like NSA Crane. Right here in Indiana, the third largest naval installation in the world. I can't lie. I mean, the first time I met with Senator Banks and he told me about Crane, I said, wait, the third largest naval institution in the world is in Indiana? Okay. But then when you add it all up and you look at the industry and you look at the history, it all makes sense. And then you look at the capability of what's produced here. Crane embodies the warrior ethos, committed to unwavering dedication and readiness in the face of any challenge. Over time, it's become a go-to, as he mentioned, on drone warfare and hypersonics and microelectronics, rapidly transitioning these innovations to the warfighter. We're going to need more places like Crane, and we're going to need them quickly. To achieve the historic rebuilding that President Trump has mandated us to undertake, we have to liberate our bureaucracy and fundamentally change the way we do acquisitions. Seated over here is Mike Duffy. He's the head of A&S, Acquisitions and Sustainment at the Department of War. And from the beginning, he and I have worked together. He and his team have taken the lead in saying, how do we fundamentally transform how we acquire and buy and develop weapon systems? And it manifests in a speech on Friday of last week at Fort McNair, where I spoke to military officers, defense industry executives, members of Congress, and others to announce those reforms. It's been a long time coming, actually. The last time there was a major acquisitions reform effort was Secretary Rumsfeld, and he announced it on September 10th of 2001. Needless to say, many of those reform efforts were overtaken by the events that happened the very next day on 9/11. We're continuing in that lineage, undertaking a department-wide transformation of requirements, acquisitions, and foreign military sales. We're addressing a core function of what we do at the War Department, identifying what our warfighters need, how we buy those capabilities, and then how we share those capabilities with allies and partners, which in a contested world is becoming even more important. You know this. I don't have to tell you this. For far too long, our department's been bogged down by burdensome and inefficient processes, paralyzed by impossible risk thresholds and requirements, and distracted by agendas that have nothing to do with warfighting. And every dollar squandered on redundancy, bureaucracy, and waste is a dollar that could be used for something meaningful. So the objective is quite simple. Transform the entire acquisition system to operate at a wartime or warp speed footing to rapidly accelerate the fielding of capabilities and focus on results. The objective is rebuilding the arsenal of freedom. Rebuilding the arsenal of freedom. American industry and its innovative spirit are begging to be unleashed to solve our most complex and dangerous warfighting problems. By the way, this task of transformation will be a war of attrition. The Pentagon's going to fight back. The bureaucracy's going to fight back. The powerful primes will fight back. And it's our job every hour, every day, every week, every month with our team to return fire, overwhelming fire, and say, no, this is how we're changing the paradigm. We're opening the aperture on speed, on competition, on scale, on commercial first, because the warfighters need it, and they need it now. Industry needs to perceive business with the Department of War from a perspective of growth and assume risk to partner with the United States. We're talking about transformation, not toothless reform, and we're talking about it fast. Because our adversaries are not sitting idly by, and their ambitions and intentions are clear. Now is the time. Here are the 5 overarching transformative pillars for our procurement process. First, we have to stabilize demand signals. We will award companies bigger, longer contracts for proven systems so those companies can be confident in investing more to grow the industrial base that supplies our weapons systems. More and faster. And that's good for big guys, small guys, and everything in between. More, faster. Second, we will prioritize the purchase of industry-driven solutions, commercial solutions that meet our need to be faster, even if it doesn't meet every requirement. It means that we're open to buying the 85% solution and iterate together to achieve the 100% solution, because an 85% solution tomorrow is a lot better than a 100% solution that is never in the hands of a warfighter. It also means there will be no non-compliant bids. Third, we will empower our program leaders with the control, expertise, and authority to direct program outcomes, move money, and quickly adjust the priority of required system performance to deliver on time and under budget. Fourth, we will inject urgency and excellence into the defense industrial base. We're only going to do business with industry partners that share our priority on speed and volume above all else, who are willing to surge American-made manufacturing at the speed of ingenuity to deliver rapidly and reliably for our warfighters. And then fifth, we're undertaking regulatory reform, removing excessive and burdensome FAR and DFARS rules, reporting requirements, accounting standards, excessive testing oversight, and excessively long studies and analysis. Some of the things that used to take us 3 to 8 years through requirements and acquisitions now should take under a year. And we're talking budget cycle speed. Anything that unnecessarily slows down government contracts will be eliminated. So the bottom line is these changes will move us from a current prime contractor-dominated system defined by limited competition, vendor lock, cost-plus contracts, stressed budgets, and frustrating protests, always a protest, to a future powered by dynamic vendor space that accelerates production by combining investment at a commercial pace with a uniquely American ability to scale quickly. We're going to rebuild our defense industrial base into a new arsenal of freedom, which I know is welcome news to everyone in this room. We're committed to becoming a better customer and empowering firms that are ready to take risks, deliver on time, and innovate. So you've got the warrior ethos, rebuilding the military, and finally, of the 3 internal reforms at our department, reestablishing deterrence. You all know for far too long, especially under the Biden administration, the military looked woke and weak, and it invited aggression on the world stage. Under the Biden administration, our adversaries expanded in Eastern Europe, in Ukraine, in the Middle East, in what happened on October 7th, in Southeast Asia, and Central and South America. The debacle in Afghanistan set the stage for a lot of it. By the way, we're getting an update again next week from our Afghan task force looking into what happened there, and we will be releasing that in 2026. Our enemy knew that they could get away with these things because Biden was feckless. The department looked feckless and was. But under President Trump, deterrence is back. After decades of securing other people's borders halfway across the world, we're finally securing our own border in our own hemisphere. An invasion of over 20 million people from around the world with no idea who they are is a serious and dramatic national security threat. That's why we're happy to support mass deportations as well of our friends in federal law enforcement. But we've also surged our posture to the southern border from minute one to lock that border down. Our goal is 100% operational control of the southern border, and every passing day we get that much closer. Cartels, trafficking, and death, all of it across the border ends. In fact, for the past 5 months, as I hope you've heard, there have been 0 crossings across our southern border. We know who's coming in. And let me tell you, the morale of the troops down there, I've gone down there a number of times to meet with the troops, to be defending our own homeland, securing our own border in a real world context with real authorities to do so, partnering with Border Patrol and Mexican Border Patrol on the other side is motivating. Our men and women down there love what they're doing, and that's why we revived the 1918 Mexican Border Medal to pin on their chest when they're done with a 6-month tour down there securing the border. These are not guys, with binoculars who don't have actual authorities. These are, striker platoons with vehicles and optics able to come alongside Border Patrol and assist in arrest of those coming across our border and lock it down. And eventually, more funding will lead to more infrastructure, more border wall, which will require less of a footprint, but even the same amount of a lockdown. We're also taking the fight on the deterrence front to cartels. My advice to foreign terrorist organizations: do not get in a boat. If you're trafficking drugs to poison the American people, and we know you're from a designated terrorist organization, you're a foreign terrorist and a trafficker, we will find you and we will kill you. No one is better. No one is better at tracking and networking and mapping and hunting than the American military. Honing those skills for many decades in foreign lands. Now we're doing it in defense of the American people with all the authorities. We got lawyers on lawyers. All the authorities necessary to do so, treating these terrorists like the Al-Qaeda of the Western Hemisphere. And we're seeing in real time that they're changing their methods and will adapt as they change those methods. But again, another signal of deterrence, locking down the border, taking on the cartels and stopping the poisoning of the American people. A great example as well is Operation Midnight Hammer. What our B-2 pilots did over 37 hours, going all the way from Missouri and back, going into Iranian airspace with, there were 52 refuelers and fighters in front of them, all the maintainers, incredible Americans who maintained the entire thing. But to go into an adversary's country, drop 14 precision 30,000-pound bombs into holes the size of this podium, and then turn around and leave Iranian airspace, and there wasn't a single news article, tweet, or reaction from the Iranian government, gives you a sense of what the American military is capable of. No, it was one of my favorite moments when we're in the Situation Room and we realized the bombers are out of Iranian airspace and all the targets have been hit successfully, and the president realizes that he gets to announce it before the world finds out, and he just turned to his assistant, we're all there, he goes, "Get me my phone." And he went, boop, and the world knew. But imagine the power of the signal of that truth, of the fact that the president had said, Iran, you have 60 days. And then on the 60-day mark, bombs dropped on their facilities, destroying Fordow, Esfahan, and Natanz. 60 days to the day, bombs drop. America says we'll do something, we follow through. Iran, he's said from the beginning, Iran will not have a nuclear weapon. He gave them 60 days. They didn't comply. The B-2s took care of business. The world sees that America's word matters. Another example of that that's often forgotten is the Houthis. Since, I don't know, would it be Thomas Jefferson? Our ships have been able to sail at the high seas without us accepting interdiction or pirates or those ships being threatened. The idea that freedom of navigation, American freedom of navigation was sort of taken as a given. Until under the Biden administration, Houthis started shooting at our ships and, I don't know, we shot a few missiles into some huts, but didn't do anything about it, just accepted the fact that we can't sail there anymore. And when President Trump came into office, he said, no, we're going to reestablish freedom of navigation. And so we dropped bombs on the Houthis for 45 days until they cried uncle, and now our ships sail wherever we want. That is a reestablishment of deterrence, that you do not tangle with the United States Navy or Air Force or our people. And if you do, you will get the vengeance of the United States military until we get our way and our ships sail freely. All of these things are reestablishments of deterrence that had to be done given the backsliding of what occurred during the Biden administration. Now, we're also reestablishing deterrence, as the senator mentioned, in the Indo-Pacific and around the world. We're supporting allies and partners out there as force multipliers to strengthen their own capabilities. In March, I took my first trip to the Indo-Pacific as secretary and the first trip to Guam in 20 years from a Secretary of Defense or Secretary of War. I traveled to the Philippines, to Korea, to Japan, to Singapore, to Vietnam, to Malaysia. We are deterring China's influence around the world, not to mention the Panama Canal, where we're freeing that canal from malign Chinese influence, ensuring that American ships can sail freely. We're also increasing the burden sharing of our allies. I think a huge signature of what the Trump administration, what President Trump's been able to do in his first term and the second term is reawakening NATO to their actual mission. You're not an alliance if you don't have capabilities. And if you're not willing to spend on your own militaries and you're dependent on the United States, you're not actually able to step up when an adversary threatens you. Yes, Ukraine was a wake-up call for Europe, but more significantly, it was President Trump saying, you need to pay up. It's not enough just a free ride on us. I mean, what happened in June from President Trump in NATO members committing to 5%, 3.5% of hard military spending and 1.5% in infrastructure is historic. If America's going to have to take the primary burden of what happens in the Indo-Pacific and deterring China, then Europe needs to be prepared to step up in its own continent and ensure that forces like Russia or others are checked properly. It's common sense. You can't be everywhere. And finally, I'll end again kind of where we started with the defense industrial base. Decades of underinvestment and nonsensical bureaucracy and unstable demand signals have left us at a place where we're too reliant on too few, and what we do get is, yes, exquisite, but can't scale. We're just at a point where if we needed to rebuild, as we are right now, the arsenal of freedom, we have to make fundamental changes. So we're revitalizing American industry broadly. President Trump is through his golden age. And at the Pentagon, we are ensuring that we maintain the most powerful military in the world. You can talk strategy all you want about homeland and hemisphere and deterring China and burden sharing. That's all briefs nicely on a white paper. But if you can't actually build the things you need to underwrite it, it's all an academic exercise. And that's why defense industrial base has been a top priority of ours from day one. So we're restoring the warrior ethos, we're rebuilding our military, we're reestablishing deterrence, and we have a president of the United States who has the backs of our warfighters. That's what I tell the troops every time I'm traveling. It's all I ever wanted as a young lieutenant was to know that my commander had my back. At any echelon, when we had to do difficult things in the dead of night where you make decisions at a split second, you're not always going to make the right decision. But if you're doing it for the right reasons on behalf of the troops and the mission, then your commander ought to have your back. You see that with law enforcement. You see that with Border Patrol. You see that with our troops. When you have a commander-in-chief and a leader with a steel spine who has their back, they're empowered to make communities secure and safe. They're empowered to secure the border. They're empowered to deport dangerous illegals, or they're empowered to close with and destroy the enemy. And that's why a lot of what I've done as well is untied the hands of combatant commanders and allowed them to make decisions at their level to deal with and hunt down enemies of the United States, many of which the American people don't hear about in the newspapers. But it ensures that our warfighters are able to go out and do what they need to do to keep all of you safe. So in this new era for the defense industrial base, we're going to take risks, we're going to optimize for speed, we're going to compete, and we're going to scale. For the firms used to the old way, who refuse to take risks and innovate, we wish them well in their future outside of the Pentagon. But to the rest of you, we look forward to partnering with you to supply our warfighters and rebuild our military. Washington can be a tricky place, but not when you know why you're there and what you were sent there to do, and you lock arms with people who share those same perspectives. President Trump sets the tone. My job, I've got two basic principles. Don't talk to the media unless you have to, because all they do is spin, spin, spin. And then just do your job. Just do the job you have. And the job I was given by President Trump is to be the Secretary of Defense and now the Secretary of War, to deliver on behalf of warfighters. That's it. There's no other games to be played in Washington, D.C. And so when you have allies, and you need allies in that effort, and I'll tell you what you have here in Indiana, in the good Senator Banks is an incredible ally, who we know we can call when tough decisions have to be made, or he has to stand there shoulder to shoulder with us or help explain the reforms that we're undertaking. It's critical. And you learn real quick in Washington who your real friends are, who will actually go to bat, and whose core is grounded in what needs to be done in that moment to advance America first and peace through strength. So, Senator Banks, I want to thank you for being that ally to us at the Department of War. From day one, from the announcement to the confirmation to everything in between to the reforms that we're undertaking, you've been rock solid. And I want to thank you for that.
Hello, Moto. Hello, Moto.
So, there's so many defense executives out here who make exquisite and important things that we utilize. Thank you for what you're doing. This ought to be a golden age for you as well. We want you to run, and we want you to run fast. We need you. We will be the most powerful force in the world 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 years from now because we have no other alternative. There's no one else to call. You've all been around the world and back, and so have I. It's only America, it's only our arsenal of freedom, it's only our military that's going to ensure that the 21st century is a free century and that peace is maintained for the American citizens. It's only us. Now's our time to step up, and I'm honored to do my small part. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, reconvene in a few minutes. Thank you.
The Whataburger Buffalo Ranch Chicken Strip Sandwich is back. More chicken strips, Monterey Jack, buffalo, and ranch saucy goodness. We had to go wide to fit it all in. That might be too far. There you go. The Buffalo Ranch Chicken Strip Sandwich, only at Whataburger.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be with President Erdogan of Turkey, and we've been friends for a long time, actually, even for 4 years when I was in exile, unfairly, as it turns out. Rigged election, he knows about rigged elections better than anybody. But when I was in exile, we were still friends. That's always a good way to find out, test a friendship. But he's a highly respected man. He's respected very much in his country and all throughout Europe and throughout the world where they know him. He's built a tremendous military, powerful military, uses a lot of our equipment. And it's an honor to have him at the White House. We're going to have a lunch together. We're going to have a discussion, big discussion. We do a lot of trade with Turkey, and we're going to continue. We're going to do some additional trade. They want to buy F-16s, F-35s, and some other things. And we're going to talk to them about that. And we're just going to have, I think, a very interesting couple of hours. We're going to get a lot done. But I have great respect for this man, and we've had a very good relationship for a long time. If you remember, he let Pastor Brunson, he freed Pastor Brunson. Pastor Brunson was put in jail for 35 years before I got there. This was a group that should have stopped it, and the president, after I called him, released him, which was a great thing for our Christian community, our evangelical community. The evangelicals really wanted that. It was very important to him, so I always remembered that. But he released him from 35 years in prison. And Pastor Brunson now is healthy, happy, and well. And we're very happy about that. But it's a great honor to have the president of Turkey with us. And how are you?
Fine.
Say a few words.
And you?
Great guy.
Öncelikle bu ziyaretimizi Birleşmiş Milletler Genel Kurulu'yla iç içe olan bir dönemde gerçekleştirdiğimizden dolayı arkadaşlarımla beraber çok mutluyuz. Gerek Sayın Trump'ın birinci döneminde gerekse ikinci dönemde Türkiye-Amerika ilişkilerinde farklı bir süreci yaşıyoruz. Kendilerinin de az önce ifade ettiği gibi gerek F-35 konusu, gerek F-16 konusu, gerekse Halk Bankası'yla ilgili aramızdaki ilişkiler konusunu bugün etraflıca görüşme fırsatı bulacağımıza inanıyorum. Heybeliada okuluyla ilgili ise orada üzerimize ne düşerse biz onu zaten yapmaya hazırız. Dönünce de Sayın Bartolomeo'yla bu konuyu görüşme fırsatı bulacağım.
First, Mr. President, I am very pleased that this visit actually coincides with the 80th UNGA. So I am very pleased to be here with my colleagues and friends. And as we have said, during the first term of your presidency and during your second term, we are able to carry Turkey and U.S. relations to a much different level and process. And as you've said, we have an opportunity here today to be able to discuss some of the issues regarding the F-35, the F-16, and also the Halkbank case, and we will have an opportunity to thoroughly discuss them. And based on what you have mentioned regarding the Heybeliada school, we are ready to do whatever we can that falls on our part, and I will, when I get back, try to discuss this issue with the esteemed Mr. Bartholomos to discuss how we can move forward on that.
Okay, very good. I would like to be able to do that. The Greek Orthodox Church was here, and they would really like to have some help. They need some help, and I said I'd mention it. We appreciate it. So this is a tough man. This is a guy who's highly opinionated. Usually I don't like opinionated people, but I always like this one. But he's a tough one, and he does an amazing job in his country. And we've had tremendous relationships, both having to do with war and having to do with trade. And I guess today we're talking about both. I'd like to have him stop buying any oil from Russia while Russia continues this rampage against Ukraine. And they've been fighting. They've lost millions of lives already. And for what? You know, for what? It's disgraceful. And I said yesterday, let it keep going because their economy is absolutely terrible right now. And I think it's a shame that they're doing that, killing a lot of people unnecessarily. 7,818 people were killed last week, mostly military people, their people, and Ukrainians. More Russians, actually, than Ukraine, a little bit more. But it's such a waste of human life, and so he ought to stop. Putin ought to stop. And with that, we'll get to a little bit of a discussion. We're going to make some great trade deals for both countries. We do a lot of business with Turkey. They build great products. They build beautiful, great products, really fantastic manufacturers. And we buy a lot from them, and they buy a lot from us. Would you have any questions, please?
Thank you very much. You repeatedly called out Obama and Biden administrations for their stupid decisions. One example you gave was a refusal to sell the Patriot missile defense systems to Turkey, which resulted in the expulsion of the country from the F-35 program. Now, you are known to be a great deal maker in Turkey. What can you do to undo the stupidity? Yes, CNN.
CNN? Well, because you sounded like a nice guy, but CNN is fake news. But you sound like the real deal to me, so I'll answer the question. We're going to be discussing the Patriot system, which is the best system. We'll discuss that. We're going to discuss the F-35. We'll be discussing all of the things that you know about and that some of that you mentioned. And I think he'll be successful with buying the things he'd like to buy.
What concrete steps can you say?
Well, we'll have to see. We haven't even started yet. But I know he wants the F-35, and he's wanted that, and we're talking about that very seriously. And the F-16, we're in great shape. Certain other things he needed, as you know, and I'm going to see to it that we get that to him. He needs certain things, and we need certain things. And we're going to come to a conclusion. You'll know by the end of the day. Go ahead, please.
Mr. President, I will walk back to you. I will walk back to you, Mr. President.
Sayın Cumhurbaşkanı, siz Başkan Trump'ın ne kadar barış için çabalar gösterdiğini daha önce de söylemiş bir Cumhurbaşkanısınız. Ve siz de bölgede birçok ülkeyle, birçok liderle görüşmeler, kontaklar kurabiliyorsunuz. Bu konuda birlikte nasıl çalışabilirsiniz gelecekte?
Buna inandığım için zaten bunları söylüyorum. Birlikte el ele bölgedeki bu sıkıntıları aşacağımıza da inanıyorum.
Mr. President, on tariffs, Mr. President.
When are you planning
Because I haven't learned this
sanctions?
language yet.
Yes.
What did he say?
The gentleman was asking, Mr. President, you have referred to President Trump's peace efforts, and you have also contact with many leaders in the region. And what do you think that you can do about this? And Mr. President has said that, yes, I believe in the peace efforts that President Trump is leading, and together we will be able to overcome the challenges in the region.
I think it's true. He's got tremendous influence in the region. Yeah, please.
Mr. President, when are you planning to lift CAATSA sanctions against Turkey?
Against sanctions against Turkey? Could be very soon. If we have a good meeting, almost immediately.
Mr. President, are you going to impose tougher sanctions on
Erdogan is
Russia?
removing tariffs on U.S. goods, and what impact it would be in U.S. production?
Where are you from?
Turkey.
I see. We have a lot of people from Turkey here. That's good. Because I like the questions very much, actually. They're very nice questions. We'll see about tariffs. We're going to be talking about tariffs.
We already removed that.
Well, we're going to be talking about that.
Mr. President, are you willing to impose tougher sanctions on Russia, even if not all NATO countries stop purchasing Russian oil?
We're going to be seeing about that. The NATO countries were disappointing in that regard, but they've been very amazing in other ways. They did, as you know, they went from 2% to 5% GDP, and that's a big step, and it's paid. I mean, they have the money there. And we're selling a tremendous amount of military equipment to NATO. We're selling. We're not giving like Biden did. We're selling it to NATO, and it's a lot. They're buying a lot, and I assume they're giving it to Ukraine. They could buy it for other reasons too, but I assume they're giving most of it to Ukraine. But they're buying highly sophisticated weaponry, and they're paying for it full price. And that's how we're involved. Biden gave $350 billion. Look, this war would have never started if I were president. If I were president, this war would never be happened. It would have never happened. Yeah.
Mr. President, I'd like to ask about Gaza. Are you on the same page, Mr. Erdogan, for Palestine, Israel?
Well, I don't know his stance. I can't tell you about that. I just say that we want to get Gaza over with. I had a great meeting with the leaders of that area, of that region, generally speaking, the Middle East. We had a great meeting the other day at UNGA, as you know, and I think we're close to getting some kind of a deal done. Yeah, we want to get the hostages back. I have to get the hostages back. We're the ones that got the hostages, all of them that we have now. But it looks like there are 20 living hostages and probably 38 or so dead hostages. Pretty sad. And the parents of those dead souls, those dead, mostly men, boys, in many cases like literally boys, they want those bodies back so badly, as much as though they were alive. And so we had a very good meeting with the representatives of the most powerful countries in the Middle East, and I think we're going to be close to a deal.
So are you going to talk about
Any solution, Mr. President?
Mr. President, we've noticed that in the Ukrainian war and during the Israeli-Iran war, the airspace of the NATO countries is very fragile, and it needs to be stronger. And in that sense, Turkey being the second largest army in NATO, it needs to support its air force and air defense. How do you look at this issue in general as a NATO? Because it's the eastern flank of it.
We're in NATO, and you know, they're paying now 5% of GDP. Nobody thought that was possible, and they agreed to that 6 months ago when I was there. And the relationship is very good. The NATO countries, with us, is the strongest it's ever been. We used to complain that they're paying 2%, but they're not paying. The United States was paying almost everything. And now they're paying 5%, and they paid. And that's trillions of dollars. You know, we're talking about trillions of dollars. And they're spending that, giving that money to us, and we are giving them great defensive, you know, the Patriots and all of the different javelins, all the different missile systems and everything else that they want. But it's, it's trillions of dollars. So we appreciate that they did that. So they went from 2% to 5% of GDP, and that was something that nobody even would bring up. Biden should have brought it up a long time ago, because under Biden, we paid $350 billion, and all it did is make things worse. So we'll see how it goes. Go ahead, just finish. Yeah, go ahead.
35 Turkey. Fighter jets, F-35.
We're talking about the fighter jets for Turkey. Yes, we are.
Mr.
Are we going to see any steps going to be taken today about the issue, about the things that are going on in the Gaza, Palestine? Are we going to?
It could be today. Yeah, it could be today. We have a very strong dialogue going on with Saudi Arabia. With, I would say, you have 4 or 5 real leaders that are being good. As you know, I met with Qatar, Saudi Arabia, UAE. We met with Jordan. The King of Jordan was there. We had a really great meeting. I think a lot was determined at that meeting. And I have to meet with Israel, and I have to do that also. They know what I want, and I think we can get that one done. I hope we can get it done. A lot of people are dying. But we want the hostages back. We don't want them back 1 this week, 1 and 2 months from now, 3 later, and like the way it's been going. We got them all back. We got a lot of them back. We got the American Alexander. We got the American hostages back. But we have now 20 plus 38 bodies, dead bodies, and we want them all back. And we want them back at one time.
President Erdogan will help to release the hostages?
Do I think what?
Do you think President Erdogan will help to release the hostages?
I don't know if he'll help in that. I don't really think we have. I don't think it'll be necessary in this case. I think we're going to be in a pretty good position. There are a lot of people that want that done. I met with great leaders. Look, you saw the people that were there, and great leaders. Egypt was also represented. We met with the leaders of that part of the world, and they want to see if they can get something done. And I'm going to have to tell Israel, let's go. We want to get the hostages back. Everybody wants to see that war over with, by the way. Everybody. So we're going to see what happens.
Mr. President.
How do you see a joint initiative with President Erdogan to bring the President of Russia, Putin, and President Zelensky to the negotiating table?
Well, I can tell you that President Erdogan is very respected by both of them. Everybody respects Erdogan. They really respect Erdogan. I do. And I think he could have a big influence if he wants to. Right now, he's very neutral. He likes being neutral. So do I like being neutral. But he's somebody that if he got involved, the best thing he could do is not buy oil and gas from Russia. If he did that, that would be probably the best thing. He knows Putin like I know Putin. I thought Putin, I settled, as you know, 7 wars, and it's probably more than that if you really want to know the real facts, but 7 wars, and I thought this would be among the easier ones to settle. But I'm very disappointed in Putin. And he's been fighting hard, he's been fighting long, and they lost millions, they lost like 1 million soldiers. And you know, with all of the heavy bombardment over the last 2 weeks, they've gained almost no land. Think of that. They've gained almost no land. And I'm not going to ever call anybody a paper tiger, but Russia spent millions and millions of dollars in bombs, missiles, ammunition, and lives, their lives. And they've gained virtually no land. I think it's time to stop. I really do.
A few months ago, you met with Aliyev and Pashinyan. Can you follow up
So where?
You met with Aliyev and Pashinyan, Azerbaijan President Aliyev and Pashinyan. Can you follow up on what you want to say about current process?
No, I can't. I just.
Mr. President,
I like this guy. I like him. He's from CNN. Fake news, the worst fake news, but I like him. So it's CNN Turkey. I'll get Brian. Go.
Syria has been a major issue between the two two countries for the past decade. And you said the future to Syria is in Erdogan's hands back in, I think, December and January. And the countries are in the process of integrating with little fractures into the main government. When do you want to see that happen?
Well, I think President Erdogan is the one responsible for Syria, for the successful fight in ridding Syria of its past leader. And I think this man is responsible. He doesn't take the responsibility, but it's actually a great achievement. They've been trying to do it for 2,000 years. I said, he does it. He did it. I mean, they're your surrogates. I think you should take the credit for it. I told him, take the credit. For 2,000 years, you've been trying to take over Syria. He took over Syria, and he doesn't want to take the credit. You know, all of those people are his surrogates. But the leader of Syria, the new leader, as you know, I took sanctions off in order to let them breathe because the sanctions were very strong. But I think we should have a major announcement today. He was responsible for that victory. It was a victory for Turkey because they've been fighting, as you know, for like 1,000 years. And it never went, you know, it was back and forth, but he's responsible for that. So he would have a lot to say with respect to Syria. But at his request, I took, and the request also of the King of Saudi Arabia, it's very interesting, and Qatar, they said if you could take the sanctions. We had very strong sanctions. I don't think they couldn't have lived with those sanctions, and I took them off to give them a chance to breathe. But the president was one of the people that was responsible for that. He asked me to do it.
Mr. President, furloughs are very typical when the government shuts down. Why is the administration directing federal layoffs of federal workers this time?
Well, this is all caused by the Democrats. They asked us to do something that's totally unreasonable. They never change. They want to give money away to illegally, people that entered our country illegally. They want to give them massive federal money. And we don't want to do that because it means everyone's going to just keep pouring back. Right now we have absolutely perfect borders like you haven't seen in many years, even better than I had great borders during my 4 years, but these borders are stone cold closed. You can only come into our country legally now, but the Democrats want to give it all away. They want to open up the borders. Take a look at that. Big thing. They want to open borders again after what we're going through now, getting rid of prisoners, getting rid of all of these people dropped out from mental institutions, drug dealers, drug addicts, everything. They're putting everybody into our country. It's all ended now. But this is what Schumer wants. This is what the Democrats want. They want to have, and they want to take our money. We're doing well because of tariffs. We're doing unbelievable. We're making more money than we ever have made. And by the way, we're going to take some of that tariff money that we made, just to get off the subject for a second. We're going to take some of that tariff money that we made. We're going to give it to our farmers, who are, for a little while, going to be hurt until it kicks in. The tariffs kick into their benefit. So we're going to make sure that our farmers are in great shape because we're taking in a lot of money. We're finding, the other day, it was very interesting, they found $31 billion. They said, sir, we found 31. I said, you mean positively, right? They said, yeah, 31 million more than we knew. And they said, we don't know where it came from. I said, check the tariff shelf. They came back the following morning. They said, you're right, sir, it came from the tariffs. We've never seen anything like this. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be taking some money from all of the tariff money that we've taken, and we're going to distribute it to our farmers until the tariffs kick into their benefit, which ultimately the farmers are going to be making a fortune. But it's a process of, it has to kick in. All right, maybe one more.
There was another shooting at an ICE facility in Texas yesterday. Detainees were killed. The FBI director posted on social media bullets that were engraved with the message anti-ICE. He just posted another thing on social media saying they recovered a handwritten note from the subject that read, hopefully this will give ICE agents real terror to think, is there a sniper with AP rounds on that roof? Who do you hold responsible for the uptick in left-wing violence in the country?
Radical left rhetoric. The radical left is causing the problem. They're out of control. They're saying things, and they're really dumb people. I mean, I look at Crockett. I look at some of these people. They're very low IQ people, actually. But the radical left is causing this problem. Not the right, the radical left. And it's going to get worse, and ultimately it's going to go back on them. I mean, bad things happen when they play these games. And I'll give you a little clue. The right is a lot tougher than the left. But the right's not doing this. They're not doing it. And they better not get them energized, because it won't be good for the left. And I don't want to see that happen either. I'm the president of all the people. But the radical left is causing this. Radical left Democrats are causing this problem. And it gets worse. It gets worse. And it'll be a point where other people won't take it anymore, and that will not be good for the radical left. And we don't want that. Okay, thank you.
Mr. President, it seems like an indictment on James Comey is imminent. Would this be the first step in accountability for pushing the hoax of Russia, along with Barack Obama involved as well?
Well, I can't tell you what's going to happen because I don't know. You have very professional people headed up by the Attorney General, Todd Blanche, and Lindsay Halligan, who's very smart, good lawyer, very good lawyer. They're going to make a determination. I'm not making that determination. I think I'd be allowed to get involved if I want, but I don't really choose to do so. I can only say that Comey's a bad person. He's a sick person. I think he's a sick guy, actually. He did terrible things at the FBI. And but I don't know. I have no idea what's going to happen. Thank you very much, everybody.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Honorable J.D. Vance, Vice President of the United States of America, accompanied by Vice Admiral Yvette M. Davids, United States Navy, the Superintendent of the United States Naval Academy. Ladies and gentlemen, the Blue Angels, the Navy's Precision Flight Demonstration Squadron, will be approaching momentarily from the south behind us in a salute to the class of 2025. Ladies and gentlemen, we invite all of our guests to remain standing for our national anthem, sung by Midshipman First Class Quinn Gonzalez, and then the invocation by Captain Maurice Buford, Chaplain Corps, United States Navy.
Let us pray. Most gracious and triumphant God, we come to announce to the world that these warriors are ready to fight tonight. For the record reflects they have the moral clarity for the fog of war, the mental agility to outwit the opposition, and more importantly, the spiritual readiness to say on behalf of we the people, of the people, and by the people, that the best is yet to come. So would you stretch forth your hand and stir up our faith as a people? For only then will we know that all things are possible to those that dare to believe. Now receive all of your glory, your power, and your honor forever. Amen.
Please be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, the 65th Superintendent of the United States Naval Academy, Vice Admiral Yvette M. Davids.
Good morning, 2025. What a glorious day it is. Welcome to the graduation and commissioning for the great class of 2025. There should be no question about the significance of today. We have the privilege of hosting our Vice President, the Honorable J.D. Vance, the Secretary of the Navy, Secretary Phelan, the Commandant of the Marine Corps, General Smith, and the Acting Chief of Naval Operations, Admiral Kilby. Also joining us today is Senator Sullivan from the great state of Alaska, a former Marine and the Chairman of the Naval Academy Board of Visitors. And esteemed members of the board, Congressman Jake Ellzey of Texas, a proud member of the class of '92, and former fighter pilot, and Congressman Derek Van Orden of Wisconsin, retired Navy SEAL. And Congressman Rob Bresnam of Pennsylvania is also with us today. Thank you for joining us as we celebrate the class of 2025. I'm honored you could be with us today. Class of 2025, this week has been a whirlwind for you. So please allow yourself a brief moment to take it all in. Look around, go ahead, at your classmates next to you. Now up at the stands, find your family and friends and sponsor families and loved ones. Give them a wave. To all of the parents, grandparents, guardians, and mentors out in the crowd, I want to thank you for instilling the values that attracted your midshipmen to want to serve and to live a life of consequence. We are forever in your debt. And thank you to our amazing and incredible dedicated faculty, staff, coaches, and sponsor families who contributed to this class's development into officers of character dedicated to the profession of arms. So 2025, to those who have challenged you and pushed you to achieve greater things than you thought possible, to those who have supported you and mentored you, please join me in giving them a heartfelt round of applause. And thank you to all who have worked so diligently to set up this beautiful ceremony and to make this commissioning week so special. We appreciate you. A special welcome to the members of the class of 1975, 2025's link in the chain. 50 years ago, they graduated from our academy, and today they represent that 50-year link and shared heritage with the class of 2025. Thank you, class of 75, for being so active in the lives of these midshipmen since I-Day, inspiring them with wisdom, insight, and legacy. Now, 2025, I again ask that you look around, but this time, look at the exquisite Navy Marine Corps Memorial Stadium you are in. Around the stadium, you will find the names of several U.S. Navy battles, engagements, and pivotal moments in our history. These names represent the Navy and Marine Corps' legacy from 1775 to 1845 to today. Each and every one of you is now an integral part of that legacy. So 25, look at these names, and now I want you each to pick one name that you can see, and I want you to remember that name, dedicate that name to memory. That name, it represents more than just a battle, more than just naval tactics and strategy or historical facts. The name you chose represents hundreds, thousands, or even hundreds of thousands of Americans, sailors, and Marines, naval officers who were once just like you, who rose to answer the call to service, who rose to the challenge of their age and chose to risk all in the service of others. So 2025, while this stadium is a physical symbol and memorial to our Navy and our Marine Corps, always remember that you are the living legacy. You are the young people of our age who have chosen a life of service. Remember that name, and remember that you are assuming a rich heritage, a great honor, and a sacred obligation. But you have been preparing for this day and the assumption of those incredible responsibilities for the past 1,423 days since I-Day. Although this adventure is coming to a close, you are about to embark on many more. You are headed around the globe to places like Quantico, Pensacola, San Diego, Charleston, Norfolk, to Sasebo, Rhoda, and Hawaii, and to our international classmates who are soon to head home. A special congratulations to you. You each have an incredible future awaiting you. But know, Annapolis will always be here for you, and the Naval Academy will always be your home. And this moment right now, surrounded by your classmates and the legacy of those before you, this moment, fond memories of crawling through mud and over obstacles at sea trials, bearing each other's weight as a team at Herndon twice, and swimming side by side at the first ever shellback ceremony. It will join memories of gloriously beating Army at every opportunity, of morning workouts with classmates before the sun has risen, the intensity of finals weeks, of incredible summer trainings across the globe that helped you find your operational calling, to your exceptional academic research capstone projects, and to the world-class musical and theatrical performances that showcase immense talent. And all of those shared experiences culminated today in your commissioning. And while today is the end of one chapter, it's the beginning of your careers as Navy and Marine Corps officers. On I-Day, you represented different corners of our nation and globe with different life circumstances and experiences. But now, at commissioning, you are a proud class of ethical warfighters who better understand the sacred oath you first took 4 years ago and will soon take again today. While we can never know with certainty what the future will hold for you or for our country, we do know that you are assuming a vital role. Your sacred obligation to our nation is to be prepared and to make sure that you and those that you lead are ready to both preserve peace and decisively win when called upon. Vice President Vance, Secretary Phelan, Commandant Smith, Acting CNO Kilby, and to all my shipmates out in the fleet, I want you to know The class of 2025 is strong. They are prepared and they are ready. '25, your Naval Academy family is incredibly proud of you. I'm incredibly proud of you, and I can't wait to see what you will accomplish in the years ahead. It is now my pleasure to introduce our 79th Secretary of the Navy, the Honorable John C. Phelan.
Well, I've been to many events, but this may be the coolest visual I've seen, so congratulations, really awesome. Mr. Vice President, Commandant, Acting Chief of Naval Operations, Superintendent, distinguished guests, faculty, staff, families, and most importantly, the class of 2025, good morning. Morning. Admiral Davids, thank you for the kind introduction. Serving as the 79th Secretary of the Navy is a privilege of my lifetime, and I thank President Trump for his trust and confidence in appointing me to this role. And it's a particular honor to welcome and thank Vice President J.D. Vance for his presence today. As a Marine and combat veteran, Vice President Vance represents what makes this nation great. Courage forged through hardship, service defined by humility, and deep, unshakable belief that this country is worth fighting for. From the hills of Ohio to the battlefields of Iraq, and now to the halls of leadership in the White House, Vice President Vance's journey reminds us that honor is not given, it is earned. Thank you, Mr. Vice President, for your example, your service, and your continued leadership. I'm truly honored and humbled to address the newest class of officers who will soon carry the weight of command and the hopes of our nation on their shoulders. You have earned the right to wear the uniform, not merely through the rigor of academics or the trials of Bancroft Hall, but through your daily commitment to something larger than yourselves. Today is a celebration, but is also a moment of transition. In a matter of days, you will be entrusted with lives, with missions vital to our national security, and with the legacy of those who came before you. From today forward, you are more than midshipmen. You are leaders in the Navy and Marine Corps, officers in a force that stands guard over freedom on every ocean, in every time zone, every hour of every day. That's no small thing, but let me be honest with you. What you're about to step into is not easy. The pace of change is accelerating. The threats are growing more sophisticated. The burden of leadership is heavier than ever, but so is the opportunity. The opportunity to shape the future of naval warfare, the opportunity to lead diverse, talented teams in ways that will define missions and even save lives. The opportunity to be exactly the kind of leader the world needs now. Smart, grounded, resilient, humble, and courageous. What will define you from this moment on is not your commission or your class rank or even your service selection. What will define you is how you lead when the pressure is on, when the plan falls apart, when lives are at stake, and when everyone around you looks to you for calm and courage. Leadership is never about you, it's about those you serve. General John Lejeune had it right when he said the relationship between officers and enlisted must be like teacher and scholar, not superior and inferior. Your people will teach you more than you expect. Respect that. Learn from them. Lead them well. You are not simply to give orders. You are to grow those under your command into something better. Instill in them the core values of honor, courage, and commitment, not just with words, but through example. Now, a quick word about values: honor, courage, commitment. These aren't just words etched on academy walls or printed in manuals. They are your compass. And in a future filled with new technologies, cyber threats, and global instability, character will matter more than ever. You are inheriting a fleet that sails in a world full of complexity and consequence. We face adversaries who test the rule-based order at sea. We operate in an environment where innovation moves at the speed of relevance, and we must be agile, accountable, and adaptive, because lethality is just not about firepower. It is about clarity of purpose, efficiency of action, and unity of command. Admiral Rickover, the father of the nuclear navy, once said, "Responsibility is a unique concept. You may share it with others, but your portion is not diminished." You cannot delegate accountability. When the mission falters, your name is on the line. When it succeeds, share the credit. That is leadership. There will be days when you'll feel the weight or burden of leadership. That's natural. But on those days, remember this: you are not alone. You stand on the shoulders of those who came before you and beside shipmates who will have your back in ways that will stay with you for the rest of your life. You are stepping into a future that will test you, but I believe, we believe, the American people believe you are ready. Ready to innovate, ready to inspire, ready to lead in a Navy and Marine Corps that is evolving, modernizing, and building a more lethal, adaptable, and resilient force. You are the future of that force. So take pride in what you've achieved, take responsibility for what comes next, and take care of those you are privileged to lead. Your commission is more than a contract. It is a covenant with the American people. They trust you to defend this nation with honor, to wield power with restraint, and to lead with integrity, even when no one is watching. So class of 2025, step forward with confidence, but carry within you the humility of those who came before. From the decks of destroyers to the cockpits of strike aircraft, from forward operating bases to submarines beneath the sea, you'll be the tip of the spear and the steady hand behind it. In closing, know this: your country is proud of you, not just for what you've done, but for who you've chosen to become. You are not just graduates, you are defenders of the Constitution, ambassadors of liberty, and the next generation of American leaders. May God bless you, your families, and the United States of America. Congratulations on this well-deserved honor. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor to introduce the 50th Vice President of the United States, the Honorable J.D. Vance.
Well, it is great to be with you here on this incredible day, and I gotta say, it's a pretty cool trick where when people say good morning, you guys say it back in unison. So let me say good morning to the class of 2025. I want to say, first of all, thank you all for having me, and thank you especially to Vice Admiral Davids and Captain Allman for your hospitality. Thank you as well, of course, to Secretary Phelan for that great speech, Admiral Kilby, and General Smith for all that you do for our country. First off, I want to say, both from me and from President Trump, congratulations to the class of 2025. I want to say congratulations not just to you all, because you all have certainly earned a great honor, but congratulations to the families, the friends, the faculty, plus the other midshipmen and service members who join us on this beautiful morning and share in this incredible day. Now, it's always dangerous to give a politician a microphone, but I know that I am one of the very last things standing between you and your commission and your diploma. And so, out of respect, I just want you to know that this is only going to be a 3.5 or 4 hour speech. I hope you all brought your sunscreen because it's bright out here. But today is such an incredible day for you. Tonight, you'll celebrate in the finest tradition of the United States Naval Academy with great food and, of course, maybe a little drink. But I hope that as you celebrate, you remember that this is not just your day, as hard as you have worked for it. This day belongs to parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, teachers, brothers, sisters, and so many others. You, all of you, are the product of an incredible legacy. People who worked hard to give you a good education, food on the table, and a sense of possibility. People who took you to church, to practices, to tutoring sessions. People who prayed for you when you struggled and celebrated with you at moments just like today. Most of you are fortunate enough to have someone here to celebrate with you. Some of you don't. But whether they are here with you or not, the very best piece of advice I can give you is to begin your life in the fleet with a spirit of gratitude. Be thankful for all the people gathered here today and those who aren't, because they made you who you are and they got you to where you are today. And I hope you'll take from that gratitude a sense of duty. You owe it to the American people, to yourselves, but most of all to the people who sacrificed so hard to get you here. You owe it to them to do the best job you can, and I know that is exactly what you're going to do. Now, it's customary in speeches like this for people like me to offer words of congratulations and maybe a little bit of advice. Of course, I just did exactly that. But you're not just graduates of some random university about to embark on careers in the private sector, and I'm not just giving another political speech. I'm your vice president, and the minute you walk off this stage with your diploma and your commission, you will be officers in the United States Navy and the United States Marine Corps, and that is an incredible thing. You will be leaders of men and women in our armed forces. So while President Trump and I congratulate you on this incredible achievement, I also thought it would be appropriate to tell you a bit about how the President and I think of your mission in this new and very dangerous era for our country. Now, last week, the President took a very historic trip to the Middle East, meeting with heads of state in Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates. Most of the headlines focused on the trillions of dollars of new investment the President secured for our country, and that's, of course, an important thing. But I actually think the most significant part of that trip is that it signified the end of a decades-long approach in foreign policy that I think was a break from the precedent set by our founding fathers. We had a long experiment in our foreign policy that traded national defense and the maintenance of our alliances for nation building and meddling in foreign countries' affairs, even when those foreign countries had very little to do with core American interests. What we're seeing from President Trump is a generational shift in policy with profound implications for the job that each and every one of you will be asked to do. Now, following the collapse of the Soviet Union, our policymakers assumed that American primacy on the world stage was guaranteed. For a brief time, we were a superpower without any peer, nor did we believe any foreign nation could possibly rise to compete with the United States of America. And so our leaders traded hard power for soft power. We stopped making things, everything from cars to computers to the weapons of war, like the ships that guard our waters and the weapons that you will use in the future. Why did we do that? Well, too many of us believed that economic integration would naturally lead to peace by making countries like the People's Republic of China more like the United States. Over time, we were told the world would converge toward a uniform set of bland, secular, universal ideals, regardless of culture or country. And those that didn't want to converge, well, our policymakers would make it their goal to force them by any means necessary. So instead of devoting our energies to responding to the rise of near-peer competitors like China, our leaders pursued what they assumed would be easy jobs for the world's preeminent superpower. How hard could it be to build a few democracies in the Middle East? Well, almost impossibly hard, it turns out, and unbelievably costly. And it wasn't our politicians who bore the consequences of such a profound miscalculation. It was the American people, to the tune of trillions of dollars, but more than anyone, it was borne by the people who were in your shoes just a few short years ago, by our service members and their families. The tens of thousands of warfighters who sacrificed precious time, energy, and in some cases their very lives in the line of duty. They are the ones who bore the costs of past failure. Our leaders abandoned clearly stated strategic goals for lofty, often incoherent abstractions. This is how, for example, we wound up chasing a $230 million pier in Gaza that worked for a grand total of 20 days while injuring over 60 American service members in the construction and maintenance of that pier. Our government took its eye off the ball of great power competition and preparing to take on a peer adversary, and instead, we devoted ourselves to sprawling, amorphous tasks like searching for new terrorists to take out while building up faraway regimes. Now, I want to be clear. The Trump administration has reversed course. No more undefined missions. No more open-ended conflicts. We're returning to a strategy grounded in realism and protecting our core national interests. Now, this doesn't mean that we ignore threats, but it means that we approach them with discipline, and that when we send you to war, we do it with a very specific set of goals in mind. And consider how this played out in just the last major conflict we engaged in with the Houthis over in the Middle East. We went in with a clear diplomatic goal, not to enmesh our service members in a prolonged conflict with a non-state actor, but to secure American freedom of navigation by forcing the Houthis to stop attacking American ships. And that's exactly what we did. We pursued that goal through overwhelming force against Houthi military targets. In just the first 100 days of the administration, we were able to reach a ceasefire in a conflict that had been ongoing for nearly 2 years. That's how military power should be used, decisively with a clear objective. We ought to be cautious in deciding to throw a punch, but when we throw a punch hard, and we do it decisively, and that's exactly what we may ask you to do. Now, that shift in thinking from ideological crusades to a principled foreign policy will help restore the credibility of American deterrence in 2025 and beyond. With the Trump administration, our adversaries now know when the United States sets a red line, it will be enforced. And when we engage, we do so with purpose, with superior force, with superior weapons, and with the best people anywhere in the world. Let me say something about weapons and the future of warfare. It is, of course, a priority of this administration, not just to keep, but to widen the technological edge between the United States military and our adversaries all over the world. In the wake of the Cold War, America enjoyed a mostly unchallenged command of the commons: airspace, sea, space, and cyberspace. But the era of uncontested U.S. dominance is over. Today, we face serious threats in China, Russia, and other nations determined to beat us in every single domain, from spectrum to low Earth orbit to our supply chains and even our communication infrastructure. Technology has lowered the cost of disruption, and so we must be, all of us, not just smarter. We got to make sure that we send our troops to war, we do it with the right tools. We can no longer assume our engagements will come without cost. That's why the Trump administration is investing in innovation, rewarding risk takers at the Department of Defense, and streamlining weapons acquisition for the new century. Investing in cutting-edge weaponry like hypersonics is important, but just as important are the low-cost, high-impact technologies that are already transforming the battlefield. Things like drones. And by the way, when we talk about innovation, innovation is not just happening in the laboratory of a defense contractor. Innovation increasingly is happening on the very battlefields that you will lead troops on. So that you are not just recipients of innovation, you're not just users of tools, you will very often be developing tools in this new century. Our lawmakers and military brass alike must learn to adjust to a world where cheap drones, readily available cruise missiles, and cyber attacks cause extraordinary damage to our military assets and our service members. And it will be you, the graduates gathered here today, who will lead the way for the rest of us. Your service will bring new challenges and environments, including ones unfamiliar even to those who have served before you. You will deploy new equipment, new systems, and new technology. And through those experiences, it is you who will learn, who will teach others, and will help our services and our entire country adapt to the future we're confronting. Now, the extraordinary education you have received is an investment by the American people, an investment not only in your courage, but in the strength of your minds and the promise of your leadership. Because your nation rests easier knowing that we have the most brilliant strategists and tacticians standing guard. Men and women like you, brilliant enough to preempt and, if called, fight and win the wars of tomorrow. And as technological change continues to transform the battlefield, it only heightens the importance for this administration, for our whole country, on investing in our military's human capital. That's you, in the well-being of our warfighters, in your brilliance, in your strategic innovation. Modernization isn't just about tactics and tools. It's about meeting the needs of our service members. For too long, we asked too much of too few. Past leaders sent our service members on mission after mission with no exit strategy, no end in sight, and with little articulation for the American people or for the warfighters about what we were doing. When we extend the deployment of an aircraft carrier, that has real impact on people's lives, and we're aware of it. They miss their families, of course they miss their loved ones and their home life. They accept that sacrifice, and that's the job that you've taken on. But the job that we have taken on is to never misuse that sacrifice or never ask you to do something without a clear mission and a clear path home. The Trump administration recognizes that our most valuable resources, it's you. It's young people who are brave enough to put on the uniform and risk your life for this country. And we promise, I promise, to cultivate that resource, to protect it, and to use it only when the national interest demands. And what makes your new life so unique is that you must take multiple perspectives. You will be junior officers, of course, answerable to commanders, captains, admirals, generals, and people like me. You will have to follow orders, even when you don't want to. And if I can offer one piece of advice from a junior enlisted guy to a bunch of new officers, to say that when you say with all due respect, That is not a get out of jail free card. I got chewed, these guys are laughing back here. I got chewed out more times than I can remember because I assumed that I could say whatever I wanted to so long as I said with all due respect before it. That's not how it works out. You learn that the hard way. But importantly, you are not just following